Rachel Calico is on here.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I'm Ann Carmichael, and I want to welcome you to a conversation about the college financial aid process. I do appreciate you early birds, but I do see several others trying to join our session. So if you'll just give me a few minutes, we'll get started. All right. As I mentioned, my name is Ann Carmichael. I've been with Leela for close to 25 years. Um, in different with different hats on, but tonight, we're going to talk about the college financial aid process. First, let's talk a bit about some expenses that you should plan to incur, and those will include your tuition and fees, room and board, any books and supplies that you might need to complete your academic year, and of course, travel expenses, which could include fuel back and forth around campus or, from your residence to campus, uh, your car note, insurance for that car, anything that helps you to get through that academic year is considered a cost and will be considered in your cost of attendance. But there are avenues to be able to pay for these expenses. The federal program includes the federal Pell Grant, the FSEOG, the Teach Grant, the Service Grant, and then you have federal work study, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute.
And see, and I'm just going to sit and listen.
Federal work study is a great opportunity to get good work experience. The hours are very flexible, so that if you have classes or tests, etc., your your boss will let you leave and take care of that because work study does come first. But these monies will be paid to the students each work period, and they will be able to use these to help pay for some of their college expenses. These also look great on your first professional resume. So please consider federal work study. And then the student loans will be your last resort. There are different types of student loans. There is a direct subsidized loan, which means that interest is waived on that loan while the student is in school. Although once he ceases to attend or graduates, those loans will begin to accrue interest. The direct unsubsidized loans are for almost everyone. So these loans are dispersed on an academic year basis, but interest is accruing while the student is in school. If parents choose to borrow on behalf of the student, they can request a Parent Plus loan, and then there are plus loans for graduate students as well. All of these monies can be used at 2 and 4 year colleges, community college, career and technical schools, for online courses, and then, of course, for graduate school. You'll want to make sure that you're meeting all of your financial aid deadlines. Each college will have a priority financial aid deadline. That means if you get your FAFSA in there before that priority deadline date, you will be considered for financial aid before others that do not. TOPS has a financial aid deadline, so you want to check their website for that information. But the form itself can be filled out at any time during the academic year. And of course, your seniors, class of 2025, you're going to be completing the 25-26 FAFSA because that's the year you are applying for aid. You can complete a FAFSA anytime during that academic year, but remember that you'll have to come out of pocket for those expenses and be reimbursed later if you do decide to complete your FAFSA. Who can complete a FAFSA? U.S. citizens and U.S. nationals, those with a green card or an arrival departure record, those that have battered immigrant status or a T visa can all apply for federal student aid. Now, if their parents do not have any of these documents, that's fine. They can still contribute to the student's FAFSA and they will be asked to do that. The 25-26 FAFSA will become fully operational on December 1st. It's sort of in a test mode right now, so we don't have access to it, but mark your calendars for December 1st when you will begin to complete the FAFSA. Right now, you can begin to create your federal student aid ID, and this is the way that you will identify yourself on all federal student aid documents. I want to share a few words from federal student aid on how to complete your FSA ID, and you can get started on this now.
Perhaps you're a student, parent, or loan borrower who needs to apply for financial aid, electronically sign your FAFSA form, or access other benefits on studentaid.gov. To take full advantage of all our resources and log into studentaid.gov, you'll have to first create an FSA ID. Your FSA ID gives you access to Federal Student Aid's platform and can serve as your legal signature. Your FSA ID is your account username and password. To prepare to create your FSA ID, have your social security number, mobile phone, and or your personal email address handy. To start, navigate to studentaid.gov and select Create Account. Once you're on the Create Account page, select the Get Started button. If you are completing a FAFSA form and are considered a dependent student, keep in mind that you will need to create your own separate FSA ID using your own personal information. A mobile phone number, email address, and social security number can be associated with only one FSA ID. For helpful tips throughout the FSA ID creation process, select the question mark icons that display next to each field. Next, you'll create your username, enter an email address, and create your password. We recommend not using your school-based email address, since you will need to access your federal student aid account after you graduate. Make sure you don't include private information, such as your name or date of birth, as part of your password. Quick tip, remember, an email address can be associated with only one username and password. Next, enter your permanent address and mobile phone number. Indicate if you want to use your mobile phone for account access. We highly recommend this option, as it allows you to use your mobile for two-step verification and will help you access your account if you forget your username or password in the future. After selecting Continue, you'll be prompted to choose your communications preferences. On the Communications Preferences screen, select if you'd like to receive required communications from us via email or by postal mail. We recommend email. Besides the required communications, we'll occasionally send you informational communications about grants, student loan forgiveness, or income-based repayment plans you may qualify for. You can opt to receive these by email, text message, or both, or choose not to receive informational communications. You'll also have the option to select English or Spanish as your preferred language for the communications we send you. Next, you'll select 4 challenge questions and answers. Memorize or keep these answers in a safe place in case you need them to help access your account in the future. Choose a question using the drop-down and add your answer in the text box. Select Show Answer to see your answer as you type it. Your answers are not case sensitive. You're almost there. On this step, you can review your information and confirm everything looks correct. If you need to make a correction, select the Edit button within that tile of information. After ensuring your information is correct, review and agree to the terms and conditions at the bottom of the screen. Now you'll add two-step verification to safeguard your account. Whenever you sign in, we'll send a secure code to make sure it's really you. You can choose whether you prefer email, text message, or an authenticator app. We'll begin with your phone number. Select the Verify button under SMS verification. You will automatically be sent a 6-digit secure code. At the same time, a pop-up window will open. Enter the code and select the Continue button. You'll see a green verified icon appear that tells you you're successful. Next, verify your email address. Select the Verify button. You will automatically be sent a 6-digit secure code. At the same time, a pop-up window will open. Enter the code and select the Continue button. You'll see the same verified icon, confirming that you verified your email. You'll also see a green box confirming that your 2-step verification is ready to go. We also suggest setting up an authenticator app, which provides the most security of the 2-step verification methods. Select Set up an authenticator app. A pop-up window will open. Follow the steps you see there. First, download an authenticator app from a mobile app store or use one you've already downloaded. Next, you can either scan the QR code with your authenticator app or copy the key into your authenticator app. Then select Continue. Another pop-up window will appear. Enter the secure code generated by your authenticator app and select the Finish button. You've done it. 2-step verification is enabled. But what if you're in a situation where you can't use the other 2-step verification methods? Don't lose heart. You can use a backup code. Your backup code is generated automatically when you enable 2-step verification. Store your code in a safe place until you need it. Congratulations, you've successfully created your FSA ID. If you've entered an email address, you will receive a confirmation email. Make sure you note your username and password and keep them in a safe place. You can begin using your account immediately, but it will take 1 to 3 days for your information to be verified by the Social Security Administration. Some of your actions on the site will be limited until your information is verified. However, with your newly created FSA ID, you can immediately complete and sign a first-time FAFSA form. You can also use your FSA ID to access your dashboard, review your loan balance, and explore additional dashboard features. You are now able to take control of your federal student aid journey and access all studentaid.gov has to offer.
We don't want to watch that again. We've seen quite enough. So just a recap here. Every student needs a federal student aid ID to be able to complete the FAFSA. And each student, if they are dependent, will need a contributor, and that person will also need an ID. So this is what your home page looks like. And as mentioned, you must verify yourself in 2 different ways. Everyone must use the email verification, and then you can select from the text message or the Authenticator app. Then you'll want to begin gathering all of the documents that you need to complete the 25-26 FAFSA. And those are going to include your Social Security card or permanent resident card. And when you're creating your ID, make sure that everything that's on either of these cards matches exactly what you're entering into the FSA ID application. If your information is not correct or it's not matching, even if there's an error on your Social Security card, it must match what's in the FSA ID. You'll want to gather your 2023 federal income tax returns and your W-2s. And then you'll gather your balances of checking, savings accounts, your investment accounts. So think of it like this. You are reporting income from 2023, but assets as of the date you submit your FAFSA. As I mentioned, on December 1st, you will begin the 25-26 FAFSA. We'll start off with Rhea, who's the student. She will enter her username and password that's been verified by the Social Security Administration. She's shown here the information she entered into her ID. You'll want to make sure that all of this is correct before you continue. If you need to make a correction, just go back into the ID and correct the information before you get started. The student will be asked about their state of legal residence and be asked to provide consent to have FAFSA check the IRS website for your tax return from 2023. They will automatically draw down that information and drop it into the FAFSA, and then you will only have a few questions to manually enter. Now, if a student refuses to provide consent, that's certainly their choice, but they will not be eligible for any federal student aid. Once you select and give consent to have your the IRS check your data from 2023, you will see that they are searching for that and they're pulling it in the background as you continue through the form. Students will be asked to provide information about their personal circumstances, their marital status, their classification. And many students are a bit confused about this. If you have not received federal student aid in the past, you will be considered a first-time freshman for FAFSA purposes. So in other words, whether you've clept out of courses, taken AP courses, whatever your situation is, good for you. That's to be commended. But for financial aid purposes, you should report that you are a first-year freshman. Then you'll be taken through a series of questions. If a student can answer yes to one of these questions, they are considered independent and will not be asked for parental information. Everyone else must provide information about their parents' contributors. So let me briefly go over these questions. The first two will not pertain to anyone still in high school. Are you currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces, or are you a veteran of the Armed Forces? But then we'll move down where questions become more pertinent to this group. Does the student have children who lives with him and receives more than half of their support from that student? Since the student turned 13, were they an orphan, an ward of the court? Were they in foster care? Were they legally emancipated, or are they in legal guardianship with someone other than their parent? Now, if you check yes to one of these questions, as I mentioned, you'll be considered independent, but you must provide a legal document to show that you are in one of these situations. So you will not have to provide that during the FAFSA process, but the financial aid office at your college will ask you for that documentation. If a student is homeless or at risk of being homeless, this is another opportunity for students to be considered independent. If you select yes here, you will receive a provisional independent status, but it's your responsibility as the student to contact your financial aid office at your college to let them know about your special circumstances. This question has caused a little bit of an uproar because students are looking at this and not really reading through the whole question. Are the students' parents refusing to provide information on the FAFSA form? If the parents refuse, and that is their right, that student will only be considered for unsubsidized direct loan. So remember, that is the loan that carries interest all through college and then once they go into repayment. So make sure that you are answering this correctly. Then you'll be taken on to the next step to provide information about your parents. And these are your legal parents. These questions are used to determine who should contribute to the student's FAFSA. They will ask questions like, are the parents married to each other? If they're not, do they live together? And if, there could be many scenarios here. So by answering questions one at a time, it will lead the student to determine who his contributors are. He will then invite his parents to parents to contribute and provide their legal information. Now, as I mentioned before, if the parent set up his FSA ID and he is listed as a contributor to this student's FAFSA, you will need to put the information exactly as it was provided on the FSA ID and the parent ID. You will need this legal name, birth date, social, the email address must match. So I always encourage students to work with their parents through the student section of the FAFSA, because if you do not enter the information correctly here, your parent will not receive an invitation to contribute. This is a great graphic on exactly who your parent contributor is, and you can see the different scenarios here. I am actually going to provide this presentation to your counselor, who will then pass it on to you if you're interested, so that you can take a better look at this. Or if you want to give us a call directly at our offices here in Baton Rouge, I'm happy to help you through this process to determine who the student's contributors should be. Now, the contributors should only be legal parents. Even if the student does not live with the legal parent or parents, he still will not provide anyone else's information in his FAFSA except for those legal parents. So if you live with grandparents or other relatives, you will not need they will not need an FSA ID, and you will not need to invite them to contribute to your FAFSA. You'll move into the student demographic section, where you will be asked personal questions about yourself, your citizenship status, your parents' education status. And this is important because there could be additional federal financial aid for first-generation college students. So please be thorough when you're answering this question. There is a service grant available for students whose parents were killed in the line of duty. So if you are in this situation, and for the first time I met someone in this situation at a presentation, and she was grateful to know that her child would receive additional support. You will list your high school completion status, information about your high school, and then you'll be asked about your finances as the student. Most of your income information has been downloaded from the IRS while you were completing the prior questions, but there are still several questions that you need to consider and answer manually. Now, in the live form, you're going to see a question mark over to the right-hand side of every blank field. If you are not sure what to enter in these fields, use that question mark, and there's a great explanation of what you should and should not enter. Everyone must report the balance of their savings and checking accounts and any cash that you might have on hand. You'll report the current net worth of investments, including real estate, but not your home. And then you will report the net value of businesses and investment farms. And I know that this can be a little concerning. So I'm going to go over, when we get to the parent section, about what is exactly meant by those questions. You'll select the colleges that you're interested in having your FAFSA data sent to, because federal student aid is not just going to blast out your personal information to every college in the country. You have to give them permission to do that. So you can add up to 20 schools each time you complete your FAFSA. You want to make sure to list them all, even if you haven't completed your admissions applications there. at the college. They will hold on to your FAFSA data until you're admitted, and then the financial aid office will draw down your FAFSA data and begin to work on your financial aid offer. But this is college application month, so make sure you're getting those applications for admissions submitted to your priority colleges. Then you're basically finished with the student section of the FAFSA. You can see here that these are the sections that you've gone through and answered. You'll want to check every question you were asked and every answer to that question by using the drop-down arrow on the right-hand side of each of these sections, just to make sure that everything's correct. You must sign your FAFSA. This is a legal document, so you must sign it, and this is where your FSA ID comes into play. You will be providing an electronic signature. And by doing that, you're stating that the information you've provided within the FAFSA form is correct to the best of your knowledge. This student has completed and signed the FAFSA, and you can see here that he has one parent contributor, and that an invitation has been sent to that contributor. More information on what's going to happen next is provided, so make sure you're reviewing all of that before you progress. And then those contributors will receive an email telling them that the student has invited them to contribute and telling them why it's important that they do so. The parent will then log in with his username and password, and he'll see that he has an invitation. He will accept that invitation to contribute to the student's FAFSA and began providing information about himself. The parent must also provide consent to have the IRS drop his tax information from 2023 directly into the FAFSA. If the parent does not want to participate in this step, the student will only be offered unsubsidized federal student loans. Parents will begin providing information about themselves, their marital status, their state of legal residence. Then you'll skip over to the parent financial section, which looks just like the student section, except for this question. Did anyone in the student's household receive any federal benefits from the following programs? So you want to check off any program that you did participate in during 23 or 25 tax years. And then you have an opportunity to change your family size. This is important because if you filed a tax return in 2023 and you had 3 dependents, but something has changed within the last year or so, and you have more than 3 dependents, you can manually change that statement. Because if not, federal student aid is going to assume that the dependents from 2023 are still the same. They'll ask the number of students that that parent will have in college during the 25-26 academic year. And then they will answer these manual questions. As I mentioned, if you are not quite sure what these items are, you can always use the question mark over to the right-hand side of each question. Did the parent receive any child support for the last complete calendar year? You will manually tabulate that information and drop it right here in the box. It's not what the other party is court mandated to provide you. It is what you actually received. You will then list your savings and checking account balances and throw any cash you might have hidden under your mattress here in the parent assets. List your current net worth of investments, including your investment real estate, but not your family home. And then determine the current net worth of businesses and investment farms. And because this can be confusing, I have gone ahead and taken the information from that question mark from each of these categories so that you can see exactly how to determine your current net worth of businesses and investment farms, of real estate. And within those question marks, you are going to see information that you should report and items that you should not report. It's not quite as complicated as you would think. But I will, of course, leave this with your counselor, and you can always use this to begin to gather that information now. Then it's time for the parents to sign the FAFSA. They will, of course, look over the FAFSA summary, which is a list of every question this parent was asked and his answer to it. And this gives you another opportunity to make any changes you would like by using that drop-down box to the right of each section. Then it's time for the parent or the contributor to sign and submit the form. Once the student and his contributors have completed their sections of the FAFSA, the information is sent on to the college financial aid offices at the schools you've listed on your FAFSA. They are trying to determine your net price. In other words, they know how much your cost of attendance is going to be. They're looking for any grants and scholarships that they can offer you to attend their college. But you may have to come out of pocket. And that's where your student loans will come in if you have not saved for this purpose. You will then receive a financial aid offer from each college. They will not all be uniform. They don't all look like this, but they all should line item. All of your costs of attendance, your tuition fees, meal plan if you're planning to stay on campus, book supplies, then any grants or scholarships they can offer you, your federal grants, your institutional aid, your TOPS as a state aid, and then your loans should be line itemed as well. This gives you an opportunity to decide if you need to borrow or if you may be offered additional money that you do not have to repay. You always want to accept your financial aid in this order. Your scholarships and grants are free money. Do not ever turn down that money. Federal work study has been earned, so you don't have to pay that back, but student loans do have to be repaid. And usually if it's a federal loan, these will go into repayment once the student graduates or ceases to attend. You'll have a couple of months to get everything in order and get ready for repayment. Speaking of student loans, now is the time to look for scholarships, whether it's from your college and it's in the form of institutional aid, from private companies, nonprofits, your church organizations, social organizations, and other groups you might be participating in or that your parents might be affiliated with. This is the time to meet your net price with scholarship dollars. Every scholarship that you earn is going to reduce your student loan debt. So now is the prime time to look for scholarships. And I know that your counselor hears from many organizations about money that they have to offer your students at Chapelle. Leela is offering a monthly FAFSA completion scholarship. Because the FAFSA is getting opened a little later this year. It usually opens on October 1st. We have opened up our scholarship for the FAFSA completion category so that students can apply now. If you're planning to complete a FAFSA, you can use this QR code to apply for a $1,000 scholarship. Your name will stay in the system throughout your senior year, and you will have many opportunities to win. Also, for students who are planning to attend a Louisiana college or are already in college, if you have older siblings or perhaps your parents or even your counselors in school, they can apply for our Choose Louisiana scholarship as well. If you are going to a pricier college, you may need additional funding over and above your federal loans. We do have a nonprofit education loan program. It's called Leela Choice. It's just for Louisiana citizens, and these are very low interest rate loans to help you pay for your expenses. You can see here that at this point, our interest rates are even lower than the federal rates, and definitely much lower than your big bank loans will be. So please consider this if you need additional assistance. We have just printed our FAFSA completion guide, and those are hot off the press, and they're going to be heading over to your counselor, and she will provide you with each with one of these guides. They're free for all Louisiana students. If you want to see the electronic format before they get to you, please email me and I'll be happy to send that over to you. We'll also include our senior checklist for college planning that has a lot of great links to scholarships, ACT, SAT tests, just a great opportunity for you to keep on track and be ready for college in the fall. Now, if you want to schedule a free virtual college financial aid session, whether it is to create your FSA ID or to complete your FAFSA, you can use this QR code to get directly to our calendar and pick your time and date, one that's best for you and the student. Or if you decide to take this on your own, but you run into an issue, please feel free to call our FAFSA helpline. We're here in Baton Rouge and we're happy to help. And if you have any questions about the process, please feel free to email me at carmichael@leela.org. Does anyone have specific questions, something that I might not have made clear? I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions that you might have. You can drop those in the chat box if you like, or you can unmute yourself and ask your question. I do want to mention that students who have parents who have already created an FSA ID will use that same ID to contribute to your students, to your FAFSA. So seniors, if you have older siblings or mom and dad was in college and they have an ID already, that is what they will use. They do not need to create a new ID. But be sure you're going into the ID site and making sure all your contact information is up to date, because if it doesn't match what's in the FAFSA or what the student provided, maybe your email address has changed or your mobile phone number, you'll have a hard time signing your FAFSA. So check over that ID before you begin to contribute. Here are a couple of great questions. Is TOPS registration separate? And we hear this all the time. And I'm not a TOPS expert, but I have attended many TOPS sessions, and they encourage you to complete the FAFSA or complete the TOPS application on their website. There's no need to do both. Do both parents need to create an FSA ID? Actually, that is going to be determined by how the student answers questions about his parents within the student section of the FAFSA. So if let's try this scenario. If the student lives with one parent, but the other and they're not married, the parents are not married, the other parent provides the most financial support, that is the student's contributor. But if that parent is now remarried to someone other than the student's mother, then that step parent may need an ID. When would two parents need an ID? If they are married or living together, both legal parents of that student, and they filed married separately. They will both need an ID because the purpose of the ID is to grab information from the tax return. If a family filed married jointly, there's only one return, so only one parent needs that ID. If the parents are married to each other and filed married separately, that will be two tax returns that have to be checked. So each adult, each contributor will need an ID. I hope that was helpful. Does anybody else have questions? Well, I want to thank you so much for participating this evening. I know your time is very valuable. Please keep my contact information. I'm happy to provide you with any assistance that you might need. And I want to thank Ms. Reed for inviting me to present this evening. I hope everybody has a great evening. Good night.